Bueno, buenas tardes a todos. Acá en Argentina son las 6 de la tarde, en California son las 2 de la tarde. El señor que tengo adelante es un increíble hombre, realmente, a master of the athletes. Es a legend, es una leyenda para nosotros. El señor que tengo adelante es el señor Mark Allen. Es realmente un honor para mí y para toda la gente que pueda ver este video en español, poder compartir experiencia con este hombre, porque realmente es una leyenda y es totalmente increíble. It's impossible to believe your races and your experience. It's really crazy, really crazy, crazy, crazy. Oh, okay. I will introduce to the people in Spanish first, a summary of your life. Wow, el señor Mr. Allen nació en el año 1958. You was born in 1958. Comenzó, obviously, you are 6-time world championship in Ironman distance. Not only in Ironman distance, because people have a strange idea. You won every distance. In each distance, half distance, full distance, you were the most complete athlete in the world in the history of this sport. Mm. I think maybe at that time it was incredible to make thousands of races. No?
Yeah, you know, when I raced, the athletes were expected to be fast at Olympic distance and to be good at Ironman distance, and so we just got ready to race really at the top level and at all distances. Now, as you know, people specialize a little more. They focus on, you know, Olympic distance, and then maybe as they get older, then they transition and come into Ironman, like you've seen, you know, Jan Frodeno do, and Alistair Brownlee and Javier Gomez. All three great Olympic distance racers, and then now they're focusing a little bit more on Ironman distance. But when I raced, you know, I did everything. So,
what do you think about to be great in only one distance or many distance? Because now it's more harder than in the past, I think. You have a lot of points that you have to take care. Speed is incredible now. They swim like a swimmer. They ride like a cycle. And they run like a very fit athlete. Mm-hmm. It's incredible. Mm-hmm. What do you think about that?
Well, I think it's possible to be good at both short and long distance at the same time, or I should say in the same season, but not exactly at the same time. So, you know, the way I did it was that I focused on endurance going into the first races that I did, and then the middle of the summer was focused purely on speed, and then at the end of the season I would focus back on endurance and go to Kona. And so I think you can, if you train properly, you can be good at all distances in the same season. Not at the same time. Like, there's no way to be in top Ironman shape and top Olympic distance shape at the same time. And I think because I did both types of training in the same season, with that type of focus, I got a better overall fitness than you get if you just do Olympic distance or you just focus on Ironman distance. And I think that's one of the reasons also why my career was so long, because I mixed up the training and I did different types of training. And so even though I did a lot of long days, I didn't do them all year round. And even though I did very short, fast workouts, I didn't do them all year round. And you can see, you know, the results of some of the athletes who were focused just on one distance. So for example, you know, the Brownlees, let's say, they're always injured, you know, because they're always doing that top end training. And some of the Ironman distance people, you know, they get too focused on big volumes of training, and so they end up just exhausting their body, and they're good for a couple of years, and then done.
You are a very expert in that topic, I think.
Yeah, yeah.
I was reading a lot about that moment.
Yeah.
Okay. To continue, el señor Mark en el año 68 comenzó a natación, you start to swim, en San Palo Alto Swimming Club. I was looking for that club on YouTube.
Yeah, it probably doesn't exist.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But some coaches, yeah. Some coaches have the T-shirt. Yeah.
Wow.
And you was swimming for 11 years. Estuvo nadando por 12 años, more or less, that's the books. Un día, you finished that university in San Diego, California in 1918.
1980, yes.
Yeah, 1980. All right, okay. El señor Allen un día estaba viendo la televisión y ve a la señorita Julie Moss terminar arrastrándose en una carrera al finalizar la carrera del año 81 de Ironman en Hawái. Entonces él decide tomar parte de una carrera. Y en el año 82 debuta en una carrera, you finish fourth with the triple Scott, I say always. Scott Timberlake, Scott Molina, and Dave Scott. The free Scott always.
Yeah.
Después de eso, en 1983, you start to be a professional triathlete in Kona. En el año participó 6 veces. You was running 6 times, and still 1998 when you won your first Ironman. This is a very important point in your story because everything changed at that moment for you. This is why we here now, because I want to talk about the training the mind, how you can get a positive mindset, how you can measure this point, how you can work under control, how you can work with the driver in the middle of the race, with all things against you, how you can work and how you can control all the elements of that environment in different races.
Yeah, well, at the Ironman, you don't control the environment. The environment is in charge. That's the chief. The island is giving you this day, and sometimes it's hotter than others. Sometimes it's very windy. Sometimes your body isn't working the way you hope, and you just have to deal with it. But training your mind really all starts when you're back doing your workouts before you go to the race. Every workout you do, there might be a point where maybe you're getting tired, or it's too hot, or some thought comes in, and it's like a negative thought, like, I wish I was home, I'm tired of doing this workout, and so right there is an opportunity to start to train your mind, like, how do I shift this? How do I make it change? And so the thing I always tried to do was to just try and get myself to be quiet again, so it's sort of like, whew, okay, there's that quiet place. You stop thinking, you stop analyzing, you stop saying this is a good workout or a bad workout. You just get yourself to feel like, okay, right now is the most important thing. Let me just give what I have on this day. And some days you're going to go faster than others. That's just the way it goes. Some races you'll race faster than other races. But practicing that was important for me, to get my mind to be quiet. And a lot of that came through my studies with Brant Secunda, who is a shaman in the Huichol tradition from central Mexico. And he and I have actually taught some of our Fit Soul, Fit Body retreats in Argentina. And so anyway, you know, he emphasizes that it's important to just sort of stay steady in whatever you're doing, you know, and so that's really a good focus to have in a race. You know, you don't want to go too fast in the beginning because then you get tired at the end. If something's not going the way you hope, maybe you get a flat tire or you lose a water bottle, you just have to stay steady and go, oh, okay, I lost my water bottle. Don't worry about it. I'll get another one at the next aid station. Or you get a flat tire. Let me just change it and be steady. And that can be very hard, you know, especially like if you're in a race and your competition starts to pull away from you and, you know, your mind starts to go crazy. Oh no, they're going to win. I can't win. I can't hang on. You know, you have to get back to that quiet space and stop that noise that can go on in your head. I mean, everybody's had this experience, you know, they're too strong. I can't do it. It's too hot. You know, I want to be done. Be quiet. That's the place that's the most powerful to race in. I hope that makes sense.
Let me ask you something. Very important, because in the Iron Workbook said that just you wanted to do the races, like that you want to say, and know that the race require. You want to go faster and faster and faster and faster. Suddenly, sometimes you had a good performance, sometimes not. Sometimes you finish burning out. That is a very common situation for athletes, or no?
Yeah, I mean that book Iron War, a lot of what is in there is just the author made up. It's not really true, you know. So even though it's an interesting story, Dave Scott and I never talked to the author. So all of those points in the book where he said Mark was thinking this and Dave was thinking that, he made that up. You know, we never talked to him. But anyway, you know, as an athlete, one of the things it's important to understand is that not every race is going to be perfect. You know, and a long race, you're pretty much guaranteed that there are going to be parts of the day that are not good, where you don't feel good, where you don't feel strong, where you lose your confidence. And in those moments, you have a choice. Are you going to just kind of give up? Or are you going to say, okay, let me just give 100% of what I have to give here, even though maybe on another day that would be a faster effort. And if you do that, then you stay in it. You know, it gives you purpose, a reason to keep going and give everything you have. And that was so important for me to learn how to do, you know, and I learned that actually in some of the races that I went to Kona and did where I lost. You know, like one year I was in the lead of the race with 10 miles to go. I had a 5-minute lead over Dave Scott. This was in 1987. This is my 5th Ironman. And I thought I was pulling away from him, and I thought I had it. I was going to win it. But then about 2 miles later, my body just started shutting down. The nutrition wasn't absorbing. I ran out of, I couldn't get enough calories in to keep running. And then all of a sudden I was just walking. And there was nothing I could do about it. And so Dave Scott passed me, and, you know, I ended up finishing. But when I got past, you know, my big goal was gone. I wasn't going to win.
Sorry, but what was your reason? What was the flame inside you? What was the idea? What was, how you support all this pain?
Well, I realized that I had a choice. I could just give up. I could quit. I could finish but not give a good effort, or I could walk as fast as I could, and then maybe I could jog a little bit, and then walk as fast as I could, and then jog a little bit. And I thought, if I give everything I have, even though I'm not going to win, that will make it worth keeping going. And so that was my purpose, just to walk as fast as I could until maybe I could run, and then run a little bit, and then walk again. And so, you know, I finished in, I actually ended up finishing, you know, in the top 5 that year, and it was very difficult to do, but I still was happy with the effort that I gave. And that's all we can do, is to give the best that we have. Some days that might mean you set a PR, other days it might mean you walk, but it still has purpose.
Right. I wrote in my piece of paper something important to me, that something like this that you say one time, to start to, like a story, like a lifetime, how you achieve your career, how you achieve your mind and your feelings. Yeah. For instance, I wrote here, everyone remembered that I was 6-time world champion, but few remember that I was 6-time an applicant, a person who's tried to. This is for me is a key of all your career, because 12 times you run an Ironman. 12. Mm-hmm. It's incredible. Mm. Half of the races you finish in 93, you finish first. 9 hours, 25 minutes and 6 seconds. I have everything here for your times and your places. The incredible here is you always was near, mm-hmm. almost near. Mm-hmm. I lost with other coaches, some races with my student. Sometimes it's very, very, very difficult to come home by bus or in a car with my student beside me with we lost the race. And sometimes, wow, now I am getting a little older, but in the beginning, I didn't know how to say, because I feel bad. I feel weakness inside me. Mm-hmm. It's very complicated, that situation, mm-hmm. especially when I was young, really.
Yeah, you know, I think it's perfectly okay to be disappointed with a result. You know, if you have a bad race, you're not going to be happy, you know, especially if you know you did good training and you really felt like you were ready for a good race, but something just didn't work out. But then, so, you know, like the first 6 years that I did Ironman, you know, my goal was thinking that I could win it, but I wasn't winning. And so a lot of the years were very disappointing, like that year when I was in the lead, 1987. 5-minute lead over Dave Scott. I end up walking, he wins, I get second. But then, you know, it's always important to give yourself a little time to just be disappointed, you know, okay, and then stand back. You know, maybe it takes a day or it takes a week or it takes a month, and go, okay, what can I do to be better the next time I go there? How can I be more prepared? Is it something with my training? Is it something with my mind? You know, and you have to ask those 2 questions, you know, because a lot of people have the right training, but they don't have the right mindset. You know, they think that if I train well, then the race is going to go exactly the way I hope. But that's not going to happen. The race will be what it's going to be, and then you have to figure out how am I going to deal with everything that comes my way on race day? And, you probably, athletes have a few strategies in their mind of how they will deal with certain situations during the race. However, you also have to be ready to deal with something that's completely unexpected. So for example, in my final Ironman, in 1995, I came off the bike 13 and a half minutes behind the leader. And that was something that I never thought I would have to deal with. But of course I did deal with it and I ended up winning. It's a whole story, but just to know that that's part of racing, and to be ready to deal with something that's like, I never thought about that. That will make you a great athlete.
Note said in his book that you learn from the first races two important things. First of all, that you had a natural ability for this kind of races. And second, and very, very, very important thing is the race finish when you cross the line. No before.
Exactly.
I was watching and studying everything about you. Don't worry. I try to tell all your ideas for the other people. For instance, I take this for you, and that's one of the centers that we work a lot. And certainly, it's the test of trust, becoming comfortable with it. What do you want to say?
To get comfortable with what?
And when you don't know what will happen, you need to know what will happen really.
Yeah. Well, see, that's where a lot of athletes get stuck in a race. They don't know how the day is going to finish. They want to guarantee to know that if they go really hard, they're going to get first or fifth or set a PR. And you just don't know if that's going to happen. And so, my goal really, as I went through my career, certainly I had the goal to win. I had the goal to maybe set records and have all these things that I could measure. But ultimately, the main reason that I raced was to just go out there and try and give the best effort that I could. And when I crossed the finish line, to know that that's what I did. And I never knew if a year's worth of training was going to end up with the result that I was after. But I didn't care, because all the days that you train, those also have to have meaning to you. Like, what are you trying to get out of each day that you train? To feel a little bit better, to feel smoother, to feel more relaxed, to feel stronger, to just get a little bit better at what you're doing, swimming, cycling, and running. And if you have that as a focus also, by the time you get to the race, you'll already be happy because you put in this great training. And then on race day, hey, only one person's going to win,
Yeah, that's true.
But the day can be a great day for everyone.
Okay, but yes, only person will win, but it's important to win. It is important to win, really?
No.
Really?
I mean, it's important. It's important to figure out how to give the best that you can and to learn something from the day. I don't care if you're first place or last place. The only people who actually have bad races are the people who don't learn something from that experience. So, you do your race, maybe you have a great performance, maybe you have a terrible day. If you don't learn something from it, it's a waste. If you learn something that will help you out in the future, then that race has a lot of value to you. And so that's why, you were talking about, coming home with the athletes and their heads are down, you know.
Thousands of time,
Yeah.
really. In open water competitions, in pool competitions, in triathlon competitions.
Yeah. So, you know, maybe not that day, but maybe 2 days later or a week later, then you say, what did you learn from that? What will you do that will make you a little bit better the next time you go do that race?
Yes, I know, but sometimes I can sleep. I can sleep when a time or a series doesn't work. Really.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's disappointing also as a coach when your athletes don't do well. You know, and in some ways it's even more disappointing because on the, you know, when you're out there racing, you have control over what you're doing. You know, you can either give it everything you have or you give up, but you have control of that. As a coach, all you can do is stand and watch on race day, you know. And so when somebody's having a bad race, you're just like, you know, you want to push them, you want to do something to help them out, but you can't, you know. And I know this because I've been coaching now also for many years, and yeah, it's hard. It's sometimes almost harder as a coach when an athlete is having a bad race than it is for the athlete.
You start to work as a coach immediately, or you needed time to start to share your experience in the past?
I started coaching actually the last year that I was competing. This was actually in 1996. My last Ironman was in 1995. In 1996, I did a series of short races. It was just for fun. And that year I actually started coaching athletes. And so I've been coaching for whatever that is, 24 years or something like that, 25 years.
This is a very stupid question, but it's important in the middle of the idea. But do you like to be a coach?
Oh, I think it's great. Yeah, I love it. And the reason I like it is because it keeps me connected to the sport. I enjoy sharing a lot of the knowledge that I learned over 15 years of racing and now 25 years of coaching. And it's fun when you see athletes start to make these improvements in their performance and to get more out of the experience of racing and to feel fulfilled because of what they're doing in the sport. Yeah, I love it.
I think it's a certain that a person who starts to training is not the same in the beginning, in the middle, or in the end. Yeah. Education to me is very important. Habits, things, a little thing to educate the father, to educate the mother, all the parents, all the family. It's very important. But what happened, for instance, when you say something, but the family say other things to the athlete, you know? Mm-hmm. It's a very common situation in all of the role. Yeah. I was talking with many coaches here, and coaches from Chile, coaches from Brazil, from Italy, and all the same. Sometimes it's very difficult to establish a unique idea between the coach and the family of the athlete. Mm. It's crush the idea sometimes.
Yeah, you know, if you're talking about coaching young people who have their parents involved, sometimes the parents are the biggest problem. You know, they're pushing their child too hard, and they're missing the reason that the kid should be doing sport. It's first and foremost, they should be doing it because it's fun and that they enjoy it. You know, and a lot of parents are trying to create these Olympic champions and world champions, and you know, that's fine, but there's not going to be many kids who turn into world champions. But there's many kids who can enjoy sports and who can make it part of a lifestyle that they do forever if the parent places the focus on the enjoyment of doing sport. I mean, I think it's fun to see just how much better you can get, regardless of whether that's enough to be a world champion or not. You know, when I was a swimmer, I never won any big races. I'm just not fast as a swimmer. I don't have the shoulders. I don't have the pads. You know, my shoulders are tight. I can't do these circles like, you know. And so I was never going to be a world-class swimmer, but I loved it because if I got 0.2 of a second faster in my 100 free or 100 back or whatever it was, I was happy. And so that's what the focus should be as far as how parents push their children. You know, do it on your scale. Do it on getting yourself a little bit better. Forget about how you compare to your friends and the other people on the other teams.
Yeah. Can we describe? I don't want to say. Okay, let me check something. When you work with this shaman man, what do you find in this man? What did you find, really? This is a real question. What changed in your mind?
Yeah, you know, a few things changed. One, working with Brant really enabled me to trust that no matter how a race turned out, my life was going to be fine. You know, the sun was going to rise the next morning, whether I won or I got last place. You know, the seasons were going to change. The flowers are going to bloom. You know, events that have gone on for thousands of years will continue to go on. My race has no effect on that. And so it gave me a certain trust in life. Another thing that he helped me to do was through many of the practices that he teaches, is to learn how to get my mind to be quiet. So that even in the chaos of racing, where everything, you know, people are screaming and athletes are yelling and the race is going completely different than I'd hoped, inside I could still be quiet. And when I'm quiet, none of that is going to affect my race. I'm going to be able to give the best I have on that day. So that was also very important. And then also a lot of what Brant teaches is really feeling your strength as a human being through your connection to nature, you know. And
yes,
we all know how that is. You know, if you go and you hike on a beautiful mountain trail, you feel good. If you sit and watch a sunrise or a sunset at the ocean, you feel good. You know, if you listen to the sound of a river or a stream, you feel good. And so when I went to the Big Island, it's a very powerful place in nature. And before I met Brant, I was nervous. You know, I'd get off the plane and it would be like, you know, that feeling like, I've got a race here, you know. And once I started studying with him, I got off the plane in Kona and I just felt like, wow, look how beautiful this is.
Yeah, yeah. I read that you start to enjoy the island.
Yeah. And so he really helped me to learn how to connect with the island itself and to just embrace that power and that intensity and to, you know, reflect that in the effort that I gave on race day. So there were many things that he did that helped me out to be ready to have a better race.
You say in an interview, you say focus in what you can control.
Right, exactly. And you know, right now, in the midst of the corona pandemic, this is the perfect time to practice developing that skill. Like, maybe you have to stay at home. Maybe you can't go swimming at a pool. Maybe you can't train with a group. So you can go, gee, there's 10 things that I can't do, or you can make that shift and go, what can I do? what can I do? Well, let's see. I can do stretch cords at home. I can figure out how to do a home weight program. I can still go run. I can put my bike on the trainer. And that is what I can do to stay fit. And so practicing that now will help you when you get in a race, when maybe things aren't going the way you hope. You can still say, what can I do? Like when I, in that race in 1987 in Kona, when I realized I was going to have to start walking, I thought, what can I do? Well, I can keep going. I can walk. And then I thought, well, so what do I do with that? Well, I can walk fast. So I did that. And then I'd go through an aid station, I'd get a little something to drink, and then maybe I could run for, a kilometer, and then I'd walk again. So it's always, what can I do?
I saw your expression, your face expression at that moment. I thought, this man, how can do all that he do when the river pass beside him? It's a very, 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 I was in races where my student, I said, oh, he will someone pass very quickly. And I said, what happened? What?
Mm-hmm.
But I don't have words that in this moment to explain. I had to process the idea and the feeling, and the student too. It's very important, I think, if you can tell us how you can control this moment. It's a very critical moment in the middle of the race.
Like if somebody passes you?
Exactly, yeah. Yes, sir.
Yeah, well, then you have to say, can I go faster? Maybe you can, but then you end up walking or something because it's too fast. And if somebody is faster than you and there's nothing you can do about it, then that's all, there's nothing you can do. But also remember, if somebody passes you, maybe that doesn't mean that they're going to stay ahead of you for the rest of the race. Maybe your energy will come back. Maybe you will start to be able to run faster. If there's still, let's say it's Kona and there's 20 kilometers left in the marathon, maybe you'll be able to come back to them and then pass them. So you just, like you said at one point, the race is not over until you cross the finish line.
Yes, sir.
And so it's important to remember that, and also important to never give up, no matter where you are in the race. The year that I won in 1995, my last Ironman, there was an amazing race taking place in the women's field. Paula Newby-Fraser was leading. She started to slow down at the end of the marathon. She got in town all the way to the last corner before you turn on Elite E-Drive and go to the finish line, and she collapsed. And so second place, Karen Smyers, had been really far behind Paula, but she kept running as fast as she could, because she goes, I know the race is not over until I cross that line. She goes, and she had no idea that Paula was struggling, but she kept on her pace, because she said, Paula's ahead. I can't see her. She's minutes ahead, but you never know what's going to happen. And then Karen passed Paula with literally that last little stretch to go. And so you just never know what might happen. So never give up. And that was another thing that Brant said, never give up. Something might look impossible in this moment, but in the next moment, it can change.
And the next, and the next, and the next.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He said, so never, ever give up.
It's a very simple truth.
Mm-hmm.
But it's difficult to use it in that moment.
It is, yeah.
Other sentence that I use with the student from you is, weakness terminates only if ignored.
Yeah, I think a lot of athletes, they're not honest with themselves. And what I mean by this is they are unwilling to admit a weakness that they might have, and in a hard race, that weakness will come out. You know, like for me, I knew that I had kind of like a weakness in my mindset somehow. You know, in those early years, I could see that when the race shifted into a dynamic that was challenging for me, I wasn't able to just say, okay, let me just work with this. I'd get nervous, and then I'd get tight, and then my performance would drop. And so I knew that I had to figure out how to go to the big island and feel comfortable, to feel my own strength, and to just say, hey, let me see if I can have my best race. And so I was willing to look inside and go, what is it about me as a person that's holding me back from winning this event? Part of it might be training, but a lot of it is, you know, what's going on up here. And a lot of athletes, they don't want to look up here. You know, they want to look at this and go, where's the answer?
That in the present time, all the people try to control, to measure everything. Bowimeters and engineers work with bowimeters on the bicycle are now running. Mm-hmm. But sometimes they lost the way of feel the body and feel the name. I saw thousands of athletes start to get crazy because they have low battery or something broke the bicycle. You can't control everything in the middle of the race, and I think you have to training for that.
Well, and I tell people that to have your ultimate race, many times you have to go beyond the numbers. You know, go beyond anything that your watch is telling you that you can do. And so that's what I tried to do when I raced. You know, I kept track of my heart rate on the bike, but then when I got to the run, I just threw that thing off, because I knew that I had to just shift into a completely different way of focusing and bringing energy through my body if I was going to have the marathon that I needed to be able to win the event. And with a lot of the technology now, the athletes don't learn how to do that.
Technology is amazing now, but sometimes I think and I feel that we have more questions than answers.
Mm-hmm. Well, the body is very complex biologically, and it's also very complex energetically. You know, you can measure all these biological things going on, your heart rate and your cadence rate and your calorie intake and all this kind of stuff. But it's very how do you measure commitment? How do you measure quiet? How do you measure fear, self-doubt, self-confidence? How do you measure these things? You know, you can't, right? You can't measure love, but we all know it's real. You know, if you have a child or a pet or a friend or a family member that you love, it gives you something, you know, it gives you a passion, it gives you a connection, but you can't look at your watch and go, oh yeah, today I'm 79% in love with you. You know, yesterday I was 85% in love with you. You know, it's like, you know what I'm trying to say? So there's so much of racing that is human. And that's actually why I still love going to races, going to the Ironman, because everybody has all their stats and their numbers and their Garmin data and all that. But when the race starts, it's the human being that comes out, and you get to see the different ways that athletes deal with the event from a human side.
Someone I think was Paula Nervi Fraser coach about you. Something very, very curious for me, but very interesting at the same time. The amazing thing about Mark was that every year you will think he will back off, but he was always upping deity. The big consumption was that he was running in his spiritual practice, but in fact, he was always trying to extract every details in every corner of the training.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I looked at...
You was and you are a very obsessive man.
I wouldn't say I was obsessive. I was exploring how far I could go. And you know, my fitness got better pretty much every year throughout my career because I kept things actually balanced. You know, I raced hard, I trained hard, but then I took long off seasons. You know, I would basically from middle of October when Kona would happen all the way until January 1st, I didn't do any structured training.
Yeah.
You know, and a lot of the athletes that I competed against would take 2 or 3 weeks off, and then they'd be back swimming and biking and running. And by January 1st, they were already in good shape. And it's like, it's too early. You haven't given yourself time to regenerate those deep energy reserves that you need, that you've used during the season in your competition.
You feel this energy at the present time in some moments, in some situations?
Oh yeah, you know, I know when I feel strong. I know when I feel exhausted. And maybe not just on a day-to-day level, but more on a long-term level. But anyway, yeah, you know, I tried to get everything out of my training that I could, but I also, like I said, worked on that human side of racing that was so important.
Mark, I will ask you something very important for me. I was asking this question to many coaches, and for me, I think it's very important your opinion about that. And is that it is important to have someone who supports you in every moment, and in when you lose, when you win, in every decision that you take. Someone to share your victories, someone to share your feelings, someone to share everything, or to be confident with someone.
I think it's great to have people that you you can share your experience with, for sure. You know, that's half of what makes it fun to race, when you talk about your experience and share it. You know, I'll never forget early in my career, I did an Olympic distance race in Baltimore, Maryland, and I ended up winning the race. And so I called my girlfriend, and she wasn't home, so I couldn't talk to her. And then I called some of my training buddies, and I couldn't get any of them. Then I called my parents, and I couldn't get any of them. And it felt empty, like I couldn't share this with anybody. And then I realized, you know, so much of why I enjoy doing this is because of how you get to share it. And it's like anything in life. You like to share stuff that's going on, whether it's about racing or about, you know, something personal. And so maybe you don't have one person that sort of has that role for you. Maybe it's 5 people. You know, you share something about your triathlon with this person, and this other person something more about your personal life, and this one something about your kids. But yeah, that community is very, very important. And that's also a big part of Huichol shamanism, is having community and connecting with other people. It's very important.
It's important to connect with other people, no? Yeah.
Absolutely.
I totally agree with you. More now than in the past, maybe.
Yeah, and right now it is hard to connect with people because of physical distancing and the COVID, you know, pandemic. And
yes, now it's very hard for many people here in my country. Thousands of families are separated with this pandemic, and it's impossible to fix now for the present moment. Okay, Mark, what is for you the meaning of love? Because I saw an interview, many interviews, and you define love in many ways.
Well, you know, first there should be just love for yourself in the sense that maybe we to acknowledge your strengths and accept your weaknesses and say, hey, I don't have to be perfect to feel love for myself, and then to have love for other people, your family, your friends, to have love for the world around you, nature and the environment, to love the environment. And love is something that's like it's having a strong connection to something, whether it's a person or a place. I love the Big Island.
I love to go to Ireland, for instance. I feel a connection with the people. Irish people, for me, is incredible.
Yeah, Ireland's so beautiful. It really is. But yeah, and I think when people get isolated, then they stop feeling love for things. When they feel alone, they stop feeling love for life itself. And so that's why I think it is important to have community that you connect with, and to have maybe right now it's not people that you can connect with as much because of the coronavirus, but maybe there's places that you connect with. You go outside your house and you go for a walk on a trail. You love seeing the trees and smelling the air, or whatever it is. It's important to have that sense of love for things, I think, for health.
But yes, I think you say a very important thing: to be honest. To be honest is part of love. And sometimes people, in my personal opinion, don't want to hear the truth, or don't want to hear the facts. They want to hear other things, but not the facts.
Well, truth is not fantasy.
No.
And sometimes it's hard to accept truth. But until you accept truth, then you're never free. You're bound by avoiding truth. And that's why in my racing, in 1989, before I started training for the Ironman that year, I said I have to look at this truthfully. What is holding me back from winning? Because I know that I can do it but I'm not doing stuff right. And so I was truthful about my training. I changed some things. I was truthful that I realized I was afraid of the race, and I needed to figure out how to be able to go to the Ironman in Hawaii. And even if I still was afraid of the distance and the heat and all that, to not let it hold me back. And that was another thing that Brant really emphasized. He said, you can have fear, but don't let it hold you back. It doesn't have to hold you back. Go for it anyway. And so that was another key thought that helped me out during my racing.
This is the reason why you say confidence or self-confidence. A lot would never take fear, never take the control, right, or try to.
Yeah, unless you face fear, just because you don't face it, it's still going to be there. Whether you face it or not, it will still be there. And if you don't face it, it will hold you back from being your best at whatever it is that you do. So, yeah.
This is for me is you was very brave when you decided to not take part of the competition in 1994. You was exhausted. People say on the video how it's have to be very strong to say, I don't want to rise this year. I will improve the next year.
Well, the truth is, I was tired that year, and we had the birth of our son, and I wanted to spend more time being a father. And I knew that even if I wanted to race, that I needed to honor my body and not put it through all of that. And so I didn't race Kona that year, but then I did come back in 1995. But anyway, I've got to head out. Perhaps we can do another podcast and talk some more about all of these topics.
Thank you very much for your time and for to share your experience with us. Really, it was great. It was one of my big dream in the world. Thank you.
Yeah, my pleasure, and hello to everybody in Argentina.
Okay. Have a good day, Mark, and I hope everything is okay in the future there.
Great. Thank you, Alejandro. I appreciate it. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.